The Markus chapter, the final DLC for Eiyuden Chronicle, is here. This is the DLC that I've been most looking forward to, and I've had the highest hopes for, as Markus is my favourite character in the game. You should know by now that I loved Eiyuden Chronicle, having put over 350 hours into the game across multiple playthroughs. But I've also been very critical of the game's many faults and shortcomings, and this review will be no different. So did it live up to my hopes, or much like the previous chapters, did it fall flat on its face? The previous two DLC chapters, the Marisa and Sane chapters, were total letdowns and disappointments to many of us for numerous reasons. And unfortunately, the Markus chapter shares many of the same problems that the Marisa and Sane chapters had, but it's not all bad, as the Markus chapter has a much better story. I'll try to keep it vague, as I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't had a chance to play it yet, so I'll only give a general outline of information which you should already know from playing the base game. A new menhir appears that shares the same identifiers as Castle Hargantia. Noah, Carrie, Milana, Momo and Markus all set out to investigate this anomaly. Your group then gets teleported 300 years into the past as we witness the fall of Markus's kingdom from Durad's betrayal and how he became the Skeleton King. That pretty much sums up the story. It expands a lot on his backstory and it really fleshes out his character. If you're a fan of Markus, you'll enjoy what was presented story and lore-wise in this DLC. The story does have its jokey and fun moments, which I had a big issue with in the Sane chapter as it didn't fit the theme or the mood of what was happening in that story. But the banter works in the Markus chapter as it's well within character for Milana and Markus to get on each other's nerves, and it's well within Carrie's character to humorously mess up and deny it. So in this case, I have no issues with the writing here. Everything is presented very well and I did enjoy it. Unfortunately, that's where the good of the chapter ends, and from here on out, the rest is negative. In terms of length, I think you already know what I'm going to say. While the DLC chapters were originally promised by the developers to be 2 to 3 hour experiences each, the Markus chapter clocks in at just under an hour, just as the Marisa and Sane chapters did. Why is there such a big difference between what we were promised and what we got? It also has the same balance issues that the Marisa and Sane chapters did, in that you'll be far too over-leveled for the DLC, and everything will be incredibly easy and no fight will last longer than 2 turns, including the boss fights. These story expansions really should have had either predetermined levels and equipment or be scaled to your level to create a balanced feel. The Markus chapter also shares other problems that the Marisa and Sane chapters had. There's no new music, there are no new items, and there are no new enemies. Everything is a reskin or a palette swap. From the enemies to the bosses, they're nothing more than simple palette swaps of base game enemies. The chapter also comes to an abrupt end, just as the previous 2 chapters did. As soon as you defeat the final boss, you're instantly back in your castle where the group has a short conversation to close out the chapter. There's a reveal at the end of the DLC for one of the characters that most of you or all of you should already be aware of. We get to meet Moriarty Gardestein in the chapter before he became Momo, and Momo reveals that he is him. I didn't care for Momo's story in the base game. A middle-aged man wanting to take on the appearance of a teenage girl because cuteness is justice? I don't get it. Even after witnessing the revelation in this DLC, I still don't understand how Moriarty came to the conclusion that cuteness is justice, why cuteness is justice, or why he wanted to look and dress like a teenage girl. Momo as a character just went over my head and I never cared for him, and this DLC done nothing to change my opinion of him. As for the pricing, the Markus chapter is priced at $7.99, the same as the previous 2 chapters, and I have to say once again, it's simply not worth the price. I cannot, in good conscience, recommend to anyone to buy these DLC chapters. And if I had paid $7.99 for this, or $24.99 for the season pass, I'd legitimately feel ripped off. There's nothing to be seen or experienced with these DLC chapters that you can't experience by watching someone's 40-minute playthrough on YouTube. The maps are extremely narrow corridors, so there's nothing in the way of exploration. Enemies and bosses are simple palette swaps of base game enemies, and there's no new or interesting loot to be found in any of the chests. These 3 DLC chapters feel like they were half-heartedly put together out of either an obligation to their backers from promises they made during the Kickstarter or because of contractual obligations to 505 Games. They add nothing of value, they're much shorter than promised, and 2 of the 3 genuinely feel like they were cut from the base game. There is far too little content provided for the price they're asking. $7.99 each, or $24.99 for the season pass, is outrageously overpriced. That's half the price of the base game for barely 3 hours of content. If you're a backer and you got these for free, they're kind of worth checking out, but truthfully, you won't miss anything if you don't play them. If you aren't a backer and for whatever reason you absolutely have to have these DLC chapters, wait for a 75 or 80% off sale, and even then they'd feel overpriced. Overall, I have to say I'm extremely disappointed with the quality of these 3 DLC chapters. Can we chalk all of Eiyuden and its DLC's shortcomings off as them finding their footing and setting the foundations for a new world and a new series? We could, but should we? The lead developers are all 30+ year veterans who have created many RPGs, and some of them have worked together in the past. They found their footing a long time ago. But despite that, I'm still willing to chalk it off as them setting the foundations. I hope that they take all of the feedback and criticism they received and learn from the mistakes and shortcomings of this game. And I hope they hit the ground running with the inevitable Eiyuden Chronicle sequel. But that's it for this video, guys. Let me know what you thought of the DLC. Did it live up to your expectations? Was it better than the previous 2, or were you left disappointed? Me, I was left disappointed by all 3. Anyway, that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.